Hey, what's going on, everybody? Tasha's Cauldron of Everything is finally here. We're very excited. Josh, you've been waiting for this one or a book like this for so long. What do you have to say about that, good sir?
I'm excited. One thing I already learned from it is like I could do this crazy thing with my green screen now.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
Just like
have you
so
ever
many
just
other
tried
things.
to like eat your green screen?
I can't say that I have, no.
You should. Well, it's just something that I learned from the book. You just kind of like.
Yeah. That's pretty impressive. Anyways, this book is filled with a lot of really awesome things that we've been waiting for, a lot of awesome tools for dungeon masters, and really cool and just weird magic items. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, I'm Josh from JNJtabletop. With me, as always, is Jake. Jake Tabletop. And I love that. I'm never gonna stop saying that now.
Yeah, Skelly and Alco. Those are our boys.
Fantastic. But anyway, today we're talking about something that I've been very excited about for a long time, and that is Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. It's a new supplement for D&D 5th edition. And before we even get into any of that, if you're watching this video, I need you to go right now to the doobly-doo and join that giveaway, because we have a giveaway going on. And today is like sometime this week, maybe Wednesday, maybe Thursday, who knows? But Sunday is when the giveaway ends. So make sure you join that giveaway before Sunday so that you could win your very own copy of Tasha's Cauldron of Everything on DnDBeyond.
Yeah, international because of that. It's nice that we can do that this time. And that's actually going to be happening on twitch.tv/raredrop. We're actually going to do the giveaway live at our break. The game starts up around 7 p.m. Eastern time. So hopefully we'll see you there.
Yeah. And with that out of the way, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Man, if you know me, and if you've been in our Discord for a while, or if you have spent any time talking to me about D&D and the books that have come out for D&D, you know that I've been a little salty about the fact that we've gotten so many campaign setting books. And every time we get a campaign setting book, I'm like, there's another campaign setting. All I want is like, all I want is an actual supplement. You know?
Can't tell you how many times I'll get a text message from Josh letting me know the next book that they're releasing is a campaign setting. And I know he's just like, meh.
Exactly.
Campaign setting.
Yeah. But and that's not to say that the campaign setting books aren't great, because we've done 2 reviews on them.
Yes.
And the 2 that we reviewed, at least, we love. Playing a
I think the quality has increased. Yeah.
Yeah. And we want to play a campaign in the other one.
Yeah, exactly.
But this one I've been looking forward to, because we actually have some tools for DMs. There's a lot of stuff for players in here, which I can take or leave. It's always exciting to have new player options, but mainly I wanted new DM options. And we did get a lot of that. And we got a lot of great options for players. Right off the bat,
yeah,
we have character options. They added customizing your origin, changing a skill, changing a subclass. You basically, everything they added is to give you more flexibility when you're making a character, so that you're not stuck or tied down by the same archetypes or options that have been in the game for 50 years.
Yeah, this was a big theme in 4th edition, and I thought it was really cool. There was a part of my suspension of disbelief on some of it, that especially like, changing like a feat you knew or something like that, that was a little bit like, that just seems weird that you could just like unlearn something and learn something new. But at the end of the day, this is a game, and like Josh said, you don't want to be stuck in a build or playing a character that you just don't enjoy. And especially if you enjoy other aspects of the character, because I could hear that an easy argument would say, just play a different character, then that's fine. But what if you really like the character, you just hate that choice you made, and you thought it would work differently than it is, or I don't know, whatever the case may be, it wasn't meeting your expectations. Now you have an option.
And that's something that a lot of DMs have been doing for years, but now we have actual written rules support for ways to handle it and all that kind of stuff, which I think is fantastic. The other side to this character options section would be actually choosing your race, which they have ways where you could change some of the typical racial benefits that you get. You can change your ability score modifier. You could like not modifier, but like if you get a +2 to like strength, you could be like, well, yeah, my mountain dwarf normally would have a +2 to that, but he is actually a real smooth talker. This guy, he doesn't have the Scottish accent, surprisingly.
Yeah, because all of them normally do. That's the way it goes.
He has
it's
a +2 to charisma.
Yeah.
And you can do that, and I think that's fine. I think that's nice to have in there. And they even have specific rules for custom humanoid races.
I like that they did that. I know we're still, obviously the book is very new, so we're still going over everything. I like that they did that with the ability score increases particularly. I don't think they change racial traits too much. I guess custom lineage is a section down there that actually, if you think about it, makes you never think you should ever play a variant human ever again, now that I'm looking it over.
Yeah.
But but nonetheless, nonetheless, because I like that dwarves, even if you do switch around those bonuses, still have, a hardy constitution in regards to things like poison damage or poison things, because that is a dwarf like physiology. So I feel like they kind of walk that line pretty well here.
Custom lineage is that's exactly what I was talking about before. It's their way for a custom race. I guess they're calling it lineage, which is interesting choice of word, because that almost tells me that if there is a 6th edition, if and when there is a 6th edition, maybe we'll see lineage instead of the word race used. And I know that word has caused.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know the right word. A ruckus, we'll say.
It's a point of contention.
It's caused a lot of people to feel certain ways in any direction. So, lineage might be the future of that.
Playing Dungeons & Dragons is such a personal thing, and if this just helps people enjoy the game all the more, then great. And if not, I think most of the things are labeled as optional here anyways, so it's something each group can decide for themselves.
After you get past all the customization options for just any character, we have so many options for each and every class. Before, me and Jake are going to tell you about like some of our favorite options. Before we do that, I'll just mention some of the fan favorites that people have been waiting for forever for. A lot of this is Unearthed Arcana stuff that finally made it out of UA or playtest. So first off, Artificer is here, so you don't need the book that I always forget what it's called.
That's because there's 2 Eberron books. I believe it's Rising from the Last War.
Yeah. But they have that in there, and they have the Armorer subclass, so you could play your Tony Stark character that you always wanted to play and be Iron Man.
Yeah.
We also see Upgraded Ranger. This is where we have all the optional class features and that kind of stuff, which a lot of people have been complaining about Beastmaster literally since the game came out.
Rightfully so.
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
Now you have official printed, hey, here's some other options that you could use.
Yeah, I really liked what they did there.
And we have psionics, too. Psionics is something that, like, people have been talking about it for the last few years, and we've been seeing it in the UA for the last few years, but people have probably been asking about psionics since 5e started.
Well, it's in a campaign setting, particularly Dark Sun.
Yeah.
So I would imagine if they do ever end up releasing a Dark Sun campaign setting, I really hope they do, I would imagine they would expand on what they've done here.
Yeah. But it is cool to see it actually printed, because we've seen a lot of different versions of it over the past 5-6 years. 6 years at this point, we've seen a lot of different versions.
Yeah, playtest stuff too.
What's your favorite? What stands out to you over here, Jake?
The one that made me just like grin ear to ear first was the Barbarian subclass Path of Wild Magic. So there's just some really fun themes in here, because I know sometimes there's players that like to like plan everything, and then there's players that like to just have random events happen, and this lets the Barbarian kind of do that really well. And so the Wild Surge, right? So I'll just read this really quick. The magical energy roiling inside you sometimes erupts from you. When you enter your rage, roll on the Wild Magic table to determine the magical effect produced. Josh, roll a d8 real quick.
Oh boy. Oh, where's my d8? All right. 1.
Okay, cool. Shadowy tendrils lash around you. Each creature of your choice that you can see within 30 feet of you must succeed in a con save or take 1d12 necrotic damage, and then you also gain 1d12 temporary hit points just for entering your rage.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Another one which I thought was pretty cool, like the next one, you teleport up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space you can see. Until your rage ends, you can use this effect again on each of your turns as a bonus action.
Wait,
you can't plan this. This is just level 3 when you choose your path.
Oh my god.
Some of them are like a little out there, but like they're really just cool. One is like, okay, you're surrounded by multicolored protective lights and you gain a +1 bonus to AC, and while your allies are within 10 feet of you, they get the same bonus.
Fantastic. This
is so much fun. Some you know, like I don't want to go into all of them, but like they just look so cool. And of course, just like with the was it the Wild Magic Sorcerer? Mm-hmm. I think the capstone for the Barbarian feature subclasses in particular is level 14, and you can roll twice and choose which one you want to use. And if you happen to roll doubles, you can pick any of them. So that's just really cool. So I thought that was one of the most creative ways to do it, and would really explain something like a Fey Barbarian, right? You normally don't think like, oh, I'm an elf or like a gnome. Like those are things that normally kind of go against type, but this would be so much fun to introduce into your game. Plus the new racial or lineage rules, however you want to say that.
Exactly.
Just now you're just, the playbook is wide open.
That's
Here
exactly,
you go.
Exactly what I was going to say. Like maybe you want to play that Barbarian elf, but still have that like magic Fey stuff in there too. All right, we do Path of Wild Magic, and instead of my +2 dex, I'm going to add a +2 to strength or con or like whatever. That's awesome.
It just adds that element to a character that is typically, you could call him a muscle wizard. Now they don't have to just cast muscle spells. You know, now they have all these other effects. So I was just, that one made me just really smile when I was looking at that. And
speaking of muscle wizard, the Battlemaster fighter. So I've been saying for a while, a lot of the things I've been complaining about, or I don't know, whatever, however you want to phrase that, other things I've been asking for, they put in this book, which is fantastic. One of those is more maneuver options. And again, this is something we saw in UA a few months back, but there are many more maneuvers that you could use, whether it's in combat, a bait and switch where you could like swap places with someone, or
that's so cool.
Yeah, or adding your superiority die to some sort of like charisma check out of combat, like things like that open up and give you more options to make your character useful, like always, especially for a fighter, because a lot of people who play fighters are like, I'm a fighter, I don't care what we're talking about, when do I get to hit something, whatever, you know. Well, now you have no excuse not to be part of the conversation, because you have maneuvers that you could use in conversation, which is so good. Also, I forgot when I was talking about fan favorites before, Rune Knight, I have heard so many people being like, oh man, Rune Knight's so cool. Like, I'm making a Rune Knight, whatever. I wish they would actually print Rune Knight. Well, they printed Rune Knight. It's here. It's real. It's a thing. Back to Battlemaster, because that's what I love. They put Battlemaster builds in here. There's a section where they have, I'll just read some of the names. We have Archer, Bodyguard, Brawler, Duelist, Gladiator, Hoplite, Lancer, Outrider,
what is
Duelist,
a Hoplite?
Shock Trooper, Strategist. There are all these options. They have a fighting style that they give you a fighting style choice, maneuvers, feats, and a description of what it is. And listen, I like to make my own builds and find my own ways to make something incredible. But it's so cool that they actually have it written in there too, because it's easy when you're playing something like a Battlemaster, where it's like, all right, I'll just use whatever sounds good. But now they're telling you, like, hey, if this is your goal, here are some options that are specifically good to help you reach that goal. And it's definitely good. You know, maybe new players won't like it as much. I like it just to look at it and see if I agree with what they put in there. But if you are a new player, you could look at this and be like, all right, well, oh, this is the kind of character I want to play. Oh, here's a direct path for me to play that character.
So many options sometimes can give you like analysis, paralysis by analysis, and you're just trying to figure it all out. And it's like, hey, you want to play a skirmisher, archery fighting style, thrown weapon fighting, one of those. You got your maneuvers, your feats, and go enjoy. That's that. I like when they give a framework for newer players like that. I feel like that's a really nice thing to do.
Was there anything else specific for you in here?
I was looking at the sorcerer a little bit. I thought that was kind of cool. I like the transmuted spell, meta magic. You could spend a sorcery point and change the damage type of something. Fireball can now be lightning ball, cone of fire instead of cone of cold, cone of thunder, which just you could be like Havoc or Banshee from X-Men. It's just so cool. Magical guidance was, they also have additional features like that are just kind of added in, and this was one that they put in at level 5. Basically, you fail an ability check, you could spend a sorcery point and re-roll it. That's pretty cool,
This is another thing playing into exactly what I was happy about for Battlemaster. It's like they're giving you rules for outside of combat, which is something that 5e or the D&D in general historically has not had a lot of support for. So it's very cool to see.
Yeah, I really like that. I definitely have to read more through these, but those are two that I just had when I glanced over. I was like, this is going to be fun. Can't wait to see what people come up with.
I really want to play a Fey Wanderer, which is like a Fey-themed Ranger subclass that just sounds like a lot of fun. The optional class features for Ranger is nice. The Ranger is one of the classes that has, we'll say, caused the most controversy in 5e, just because a lot of people think it is ridiculously underpowered. A lot of people are like, what do you mean it's underpowered? I love playing my Ranger, like whatever. Because of that, we've had a lot of iterations of Rangers over the past 5 years in Unearthed Arcana. So there's a lot. I mean, you have the Deft Explorer, which will replace Natural Explorer, which is something that kind of levels with you. So first level, you get Canny. So you can choose one of your skill proficiencies and double your proficiency bonus, which is pretty nice. That's kind of a rogue thing. You also learn 2 languages. 6th level, your walking speed will increase by 5, and you also gain a climbing speed and a swimming speed equal to your walking speed.
Oh, wow.
That's huge. That's something that a player, or especially a new player, might look at and be like, oh, all right. But a DM, meaning like you heard Jake's response to that.
Well, it also plays into, a Ranger should have a mobility to them that in many ways was not It was reflected in things like I can't remember the feature's name off the top of my head, but like you can like your travel's not reduced by harsh terrain, but that's more like a out of combat group thing. And here it's represented in game.
Mhm.
You need someone to climb that tree real quick or whatever, you know. Well, the ranger's like, I'm on it. Let's go.
Yeah.
They should be the person doing that.
Having a swim speed is also a kind of huge thing in D&D too. Like climbing speed is nice, but like if you're in an underwater town, if you don't have a swim speed, you're gonna be screwed. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, that's a nice fun environment the DM can throw at you.
Yeah. Tireless. This is the last section for this set of class features. At 10th level, as an action, you can give yourself a number of temporary hit points equal to 1d8 plus your wisdom modifier. You can use this action a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. In addition, whenever you finish a short rest, your exhaustion level, if any, is increased by 1. That's very nice.
Oh, so this really leans into the tracking, or that second paragraph really leans into being just I'm on your trail, and I can push myself beyond the normal limits, and I don't need a long rest. I can do a short rest, and I'm gonna get you.
Yeah,
that is awesome. And then tireless. I mean, that's just leaning into. I mean, people normally don't associate ranger as a tank. You normally think barbarian, fighter, paladin. Ranger gets a D10. That's not something to sneeze at.
Mm-hmm.
This is nice. It's like a second wind.
I love the short rest, removing an exhaustion level, because it's kind of like the ranger. You expect them to be out in the wilderness doing their thing, and they keep going. They might not hit the hardest. They might not take as many hits, like as I don't know. They might not be the tankiest. They might not do the most damage. Whatever, but they will keep going.
They're reliable.
Exactly.
And relentless.
Yeah. You just give them a minute to catch their breath and they'll be back. Like that's all they need. They just need to catch their breath.
Favorite foe? This is almost like a...
It replaces favorite enemy.
Okay, so this is almost like a Hunter's Mark for free, in a way.
This one is actually kind of an interesting thing, so I'll read this. When you hit a creature with an attack roll, you can call in your mystical bond with nature to mark the target as your favorite enemy for 1 minute or until you lose your concentration, as if you're concentrating on a spell. The first time on each of your turns that you hit the favorite enemy and deal damage to it, including when you mark it, you can increase that damage by 1d4.
I'm sorry, only the first time.
Only the first time.
Yeah.
You could use this feature to mark a favorite enemy a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. You regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. Extra damage increases to 1d6 at 6th level, 1d8 at 14th level.
Okay.
That's not it for me, personally. I think they've had several different versions of favorite foe and favorite enemy throughout the Unearthed Arcana. This one I don't really like. You are using your concentration, so that means you can't use Hunter's Mark, which this is like an incredibly dumbed down version of Hunter's Mark.
Yeah, the only thinking here is just to free up a spell slot or spell choice, I guess.
Yeah, that's really it. So
yeah, it's like a worse Colossus Slayer.
Yeah, it's exactly what it's like.
Right?
Because Hunter's Mark is a d6. You could do it anytime you deal damage. You're also dealing Hunter's Mark damage. And also you could use a bonus action to move it to someone else, which doesn't say that you can or can't for this.
Yeah.
Which is a huge mistake.
I think the fact that it just is its own resource, it's not a spell slot.
Yeah.
I think that's really the only real appeal here, I think.
Well, it doesn't say, this is interesting. When you hit a creature with an attack roll, you can call on your mystical bond face your favorite enemy for 1 minute or until you lose your concentration.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when it dies? And can you change it to something else?
It doesn't say anything. I mean, I'd be inclined to say nothing. It's just
Yeah.
done.
Yeah, doesn't say anything. Interesting. But yeah, in Colossus Slayer, like you said,
And play a hunter.
done. Yeah, it's a damage you do once per turn, and it's a D8.
Yeah.
So you get that at 3rd level instead of 14th level. It doesn't cost anything; you just do it. And I'll take that. I'll take that over Favorite Foe, and I'll take Hunter's Mark over Favorite Foe any day, personally.
Yeah, like I said, I think the only real benefit to this feature that is strong is that it doesn't use a spell slot,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, obviously, it takes your concentration, but it doesn't. It's not going to take a spell choice too, because even the rangers get magic. It's like bards and sorcerers; like they don't get like a full list to prepare from, like the paladin would.
Mm-hmm.
So, to me, that's really the only like. That's the angle I'm playing here if I'm excited about Favorite Foe.
Mm-hmm. No, and I agree.
But
I just
it
think
would replace the favorite enemy, so if you didn't want to use that and you want to go Hunter's Mark, I guess you're just sticking with the regular.
Well, you can, like Hunter's Mark, you'll still have that available to you to choose as an option, but it's like, I don't know.
Yeah,
But,
I think if I chose Favorite Foe, though, I wouldn't take Hunter's Mark as a spell.
mm-hmm.
Personally, I would just say it's too redundant.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think as a ranger, concentration is a huge thing that you need to worry about, the concentration economy, if you will. So this is not worth it for me. Because what is Zephyr Strike is also concentration, is it not?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Why are you going to choose this over Hunter's Mark or Zephyr Strike?
You're not.
Or there's a lot of arrow options you get later on that are all concentration. So it's like, it's just a waste for me personally. But there's a lot of other cool stuff in there. I'm not complaining about that. That's just my opinion.
Mm-hmm. It did add Entangle to the Ranger spell list, which was really cool.
Yeah, I'm happy to see that there.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do a whole video on Ranger.
So it sounds like you had a lot in there. So I'd be down with that.
So after all the classes and subclasses and all that junk, we have feats. And feats, you actually heard us talk about all of these, pretty much. Because there was an Unearthed Arcana about a month ago. And this is something I really wanted to touch on too. I mean, obviously we're happy to see them in here because if you watched that video, you heard us talk about like how we really liked 99% of them, if not all of them. And one thing that we talked about is Unearthed Arcana, they used to at least always just leave things in there overpowered, not really ready to actually be printed material. And I at least complained about how it's kind of ridiculous that at this point they don't know how to make something close to what it would be printed as.
Mm-hmm.
And for the feats, at least, we saw that. We saw the Unearthed Arcana, and in this book, they're here. First off, the playtest time was like 1 to 2 months, and second, they're so similar, if not the same. As
I'd have to go through each one with a fine-tooth comb, if you will, but they're almost all identical.
I spot checked it, and the ones that I checked were identical.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some things that have been changed, but the few that I looked at were the same, which was cool.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very exciting. The next section that we have is the group patron section. This is one of the things that I was very excited to see how it worked in here. When I saw that they had group patrons listed, there are like a lot of things going through my head of like, what do they mean by that? Mostly, I think it's kind of like organizations, but like a much better rundown of how to build an organization than what you have in the DMG, which is fine. The DMG is supposed to give you general rules. It's not supposed to go in depth with it. And this one gives in depth. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, I'm excited to learn about it too. I haven't really looked at it much just because so many of the things had excited me when I was looking at it, and it's only been out for today so far. But I liked that they had, some of the examples: academy, an ancient being, criminal syndicate, military force, a religious order. Like, there's a lot of ways to flavor and set up an organization that really should have some pretty cool influence on the world that you're adventuring in. So
here's the exciting thing about that list. If you click on any of those, if you're on DnDBeyond anyway, and again, enter that giveaway. If you click on any of those, it takes you to a list of like descriptions of what it could be like. So academies, okay, well, it gives a description of what an academy might be. It also has types of academies. Doesn't stop there. We now have a D6 table of the type of academy. So it could be anything from a boarding school to a secret monastery to a museum of dreams, which that's kind of crazy.
I want to know more about that right now.
I'm going to read that because that sounds cool. Magical communication or shared dreamscapes connect a network of wide-ranging specialists. Okay, interesting.
It's like, this is all I can imagine. I'm just imagining, like, you ever watch like movies set in like the 40s or 50s, and you see all the ladies usually sitting up against like an operator board, and they're just like connecting. Just imagine, like, where can I route your dream, and just like go to the next.
That's like exactly what I'm imagining too. I don't know why. I think we spend too much time together.
That might be it.
But then it gives you a list of perks. So we have compensation, documentation, research, resources, training. But all of those, there's a paragraph on each of those. I'm not going to go too in depth with it because really, we're just giving you like an overview of this book. I can't give you D&D's content for free. But
yeah, this actually looks really interesting. Now that I'm really looking at it, I didn't give it the attention it deserved, apparently.
It gives you descriptions and options for benefits that you can have for just being a part of a certain type of organization. And these, as Alco says, or Hidden Nerdy Side says, this is something that you could take, modify, steal, and drop into your campaign setting. Like, this, all you have to do is take the framework of this, whether you want to use their description for like the Secret Dream Society or whether you have your own idea for it, but it is an academy. All right, well, these are all the things that you'll get for being a part of it. There's a lot of really nice stuff.
Yeah, because, right, like, how many times you pick the soldier background and you're like, well, what kind of... I mean, obviously, you're going to have more than just a place to sleep, which is pretty much what we joke around about. But most backgrounds, that's kind of all you get out of it. Well, now, if you click on military force, you're going to have military force perks. There's an armory. You could purchase non-magical weapons and armor at a 20% discount at a facility associated with your military force. You want that plate armor? Getting 20% off is pretty big deal, especially in the early levels of adventuring, before you strike it rich and really don't know what to spend your money on. But that's a very tangible benefit. Like, I just literally did the thing. I clicked on the links and read the thing like Josh just said. So it was bam, like that.
Military force could be the Iron Gauntlets. Military force doesn't necessarily mean that you had it's nice if you tie your background to that too. But like, if your players are in a guild, if they're in some sort of like fighting guild or something like that, or they're going out on missions and investigating things, all right, that's military force. Like, it's broad strokes here. But the next section it has there is academy contact, so or just patron contact, we'll say, and it's another D6 table to tell you what type of contact you have for this. So you could have the celebrated instructor, or the infatuated tourist, or a distant observer.
I like that one. A flirtatious visiting scholar perceives your every report and donated discovery as a personal gift. Your contact is just flirting with you and all over you.
and that's great. Look at that, though. That one sentence. Imagine if you had that NPC in one of your campaigns. It's a memorable NPC just with that description.
For some reason, I'm trying to think of. I think it was called Bad Boss. I'm thinking of Jennifer Aniston's character. She was like the
Horrible
dentist.
bosses.
Horrible bosses. She was like all crazy with stuff. I don't know. There you go. This is beautiful.
You have roles. So you start off as a student, and then groundskeeper, processor, researcher, financier, expert, and it has backgrounds that would match up with that. So that, yeah, that's just great. Then you also have a list of quest types for it. You have a D6 list. You can go from
so cool.
forbidden history to evolutionary divinity. You dare to explore what no mortal was meant to know, the origins of divinity. Like, there's one of you have to understand, viewers, my friends, I'm reading you the examples from one of the, what were there, 6 options or more than that?
Yeah, more than that.
There's
8.
Yeah, there's 8 options. I'm reading you one of the examples from one of the 8 options that they have here. Like, this should be, if you're making your homebrew world, this should be enough for you to build a very interesting organization.
One thing I really like is, if you had seen our interview with Hidden Nerdy Side, one thing Josh said that he loves so much about his videos is that it's not necessarily exactly what he did, but how the things he says sparks his own imagination. And this is a whole bunch of sparks just waiting to be lit on fire. And this is really cool. Actually, I just got excited about group patrons just hearing you talk about it. So
they have options for being your own patron, which is a really fun, interesting concept. The
picture is a guy face planting, which is great. That looks great.
So I looked a little bit into this next section, but I think you looked a little more than I did. So when it goes into like spells and magic items, were there anything that stood out to you in here?
I actually love this section so much because Tasha is a witch, she's a wizard, and there's a very we just ran a section of Ancient Relics and Hoki Religions where we fought a hag, and Josh was telling me how the DMG is telling him, or the Monster Manual, excuse me, is telling him to basically make their spells seem kind of just weird and just, it might have the same effect, but it's just odd and different and all sorts of things like that. So a lot of the magic items here feel that way to me, and I love that. So you have Baba Yaga's Mortar and Pestle, and that's like an artifact that's got all sorts of just strange things. You have something called the Cauldron of Rebirth, which is a tiny pot, and it expands to let you fit a medium-sized creature in it, and you put, 200 pounds of salt over it, and it returns to life 8 hours later as if the Raise Dead spell had been cast on it. Like, that's just such a weird thing. And guess what? It's not a cleric item. It's a druid or warlock item, which just adds the flavor there so much more. I don't know. This is really cool to me.
And if any of you are like me and you were thinking, does that mean that my character is going to wake up buried alive in salt? No, the salt is consumed in the process. So,
yeah.
Well, I hope you don't eat 200 pounds of salt, but
you're gonna need some water.
Destroyed in the process, we'll say.
Yeah. And they also have magical tattoos, which I think is really cool. And these things are not just like little bonuses. Some of them are like really powerful. Like there's one called the Barrier Tattoo, and it's basically like wearing armor in a form of a tattoo. And depending on the type there is, it's like light. Basically, there's a light armor version, a medium armor version, and a heavy armor version. And it requires attunement, so that's a pretty decent cost, especially as you get to some of the much more powerful items as you climb in level typically. But yeah, and if ever you like disattune, whatever that word is, you can still attune to it later if you decided that's what you wanted to do, which I think is just really cool. Still no magical bow, Josh.
I know.
That would be my only my only real critique here.
I I did Control F bow, and the only one. There are two things that came up. I don't remember what the second thing was, but the first one was bull. So
They didn't even show an Ev bow.
no, not an F bow.
It's messed up.
Hmm.
Thanks, Wizards of the Coast.
Please give us a big book of bows someday.
Oh, imagine if that's the name of it.
I'll take it.
The real Josh T's Big Book of Bows. That'd be great.
Hey, stay tuned. Keep an eye out for Josh's Big Book of Bows on Dungeon Masters Guild, right? DM Guild, something like that. Whatever.
Yep.
It can happen.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And then we have some spells too, which I thought were really fun. One cantrip in particular, Mind Sliver. So Josh mentioned some psionics in the earlier part of this video, and this is a cantrip that forces the target to do an intelligence save. It's not a very normal saving throw to target, but against a lot of monsters, you're probably in good shape because a lot of monsters and beasts have low intelligence. Deals a d6 psychic damage. And, oh, by the way, the next saving throw that it makes before the end of your next turn, take away a d4. You get the old 1-2. If it's you and a friend, or you and your next turn, you can hit it with something.
Fantastic.
That was cool. They got a lot of summon spells in here, too, which I think they all have very similar mechanics and themes to them. They usually have, like, 2 or 3 options for, like, summon Fae, summon Undead, summon Construct, a lot of things.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's some good stuff. And a lot of spells from the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide made it in here, like Booming Blade.
One of my favorite magic items that really stood out to me is actually a common item, and it is a prosthetic limb. This item replaces a lost limb, a hand, an arm, a foot, a leg, or similar body part. While the prosthetic is attached, it functions identically to the part it replaces. You can detach or reattach it as an action, and it can't be removed against your will. It detaches if you die. I love that. I love that it exists, and I love that it's a common item.
And it's magic. It's like in Star Wars, right? Like, oh, Luke lost a hand. Who cares? Beep 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 beep.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a lot of like odd spell books kind of things that you could use as a wizard focus, and it's only a wizard. It's not sorcerer or warlock that it shows in there, but it comes with like other spells, and it like even a lot of them let you just not retrain, but re-prepare by spending a minute and using a charge of the book, which is really cool. How many times are you playing a wizard and you're like, if I would have just prepared this other spell, then I would be ready for the situation that just showed up. Now you get a little versatility there.
Next section we have is Dungeon Master's Tools, and which is kind of interesting that they just made this a whole chapter, because I definitely would consider group patrons a section in Dungeon Master Tools. But hey, it starts off with Session 0, which you have heard us talk so much about. Session Zeros. They're very important, and it's very good that you go over things with a Session 0. Like if especially if it's a new group, watch like any of our DM videos and you'll hear us mention a Session 0. Plus we have a video on Session Zeros. Maybe I don't know. It's good that it's good that it has that information in there. It's nice. Next thing that we've never really talked about, sidekicks. We have rules for sidekicks, and I'm sure Jake could tell you more about this, but old school D&D, henchmen and sidekicks were a large part of the game. So it's cool that they have their own little things in there. There's a couple options that you could have.
This is different. This actually resembles much more closely to like what you would see in the Essentials kit when we ran our Dragon of Icespire Peak adventure. There was options for sidekicks because that adventure actually was designed for a solo player, and I think that this fits in really well, right? Because if you want to play a wizard, you're pretty squishy, so you might want to have a bodyguard, or vice versa. You might want to have a healer or someone that can, maybe figure out some of these things with magic or whatever have you. And this provides a simpler kind of character to play with some options that just are very straightforward. Keep it going, gonna help you out. I think it even mentions like they are just loyal to you forever. Like it's that kind of a like Han Solo and Chewie kind of a relationship. And I think if you're gonna be introducing your kids to D&D, and maybe some of them are a little younger, and might have a hard time with some of the rules, I think they'd have a ton of fun playing a sidekick.
Yeah, it's definitely not a bad way to be introduced. The levels that you could have are either expert, warrior, or spellcaster. Kind of go without saying. And actually, it's kind of interesting because up to 20, obviously, you're not going to be as strong as a player character, but you do get a lot of little things that aren't exactly like, it's not as good as a character class, but it's still nice little things, and it's cool to be able to level up a sidekick like that.
Mm-hmm.
Especially since technically anything that fights alongside you gains an equal share of experience.
Yeah, something you can cover in your session 0. Do sidekicks count for that?
After sidekicks, we have a very just wonderful section.
Yes.
Called Parleying with Monsters. I love it.
Yeah, the monster research table alone. How many times you hear a player ask the DM, what does my character know about such and such? What does my character know about this creature or that creature? Got a very nice simple formula. DC equals 10 plus the challenge rating, and then depending on the type of creature tells you the kind of skills associated with that check.
Yep. Simple.
Great. Easy.
And this is, Jake and I were talking about this earlier, where like if you don't have anything prepped for the night, grab a random encounter table, grab the monster research table, and then right underneath that is the monsters desires table. And this gives you broken down by type, so aberrations, beasts, celestials, all that junk. It has a d4 table of what they want. So for a beast, it might be fresh meat. For an aberration, it might be accepting a strange organic graft onto your body. Like
spark.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you want ideas? Maybe don't even look at that random encounter table. Look at these tables and just look at the types and look at what sort of offering they might want. And then say, okay, all right, I have a beast that is looking for an old stuffed animal or other soft trinket. Find a specific stuffed animal or trinket. Some sort of beast is wreaking havoc in this border town. Why is it doing that?
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're trying to find out. Your party could go kill it, and that's an adventure. Or they could realize, hey, he's looking for his teddy bear.
That's right.
And give it back to him. There's an adventure. There's a one-shot that you can come up with fairly quickly. All you need is a couple of NPCs and just a little bit more details. But like, I love this table.
I really like the Fae table. Did you see that one?
Oh, I didn't, but you know how I feel about Fae.
I know. Like one is the memory of your first kiss. The color of your eyes. What does that mean? Okay.
That's fantastic. Like,
that's such a Fae thing to want.
Think about this. Like, the color of your eyes. The not creative person, the not D&D player, can look at that and say, all they have to do is look at you. Us. Let's think about this for a second. Okay, one, maybe the Fae is colorblind. Sees black and white. It has no idea what color your eyes are. And colors are very important to it. That
sounds like a really fun affliction, by the way.
Yeah, right? And another one, Fae are like crazy. So maybe it refuses to look at you. It won't look at you. You're trying to show it. It won't look at you, but it wants to know the color of your eyes. Like, so just think about that. Don't take the most direct path of just like, all right, just look at me, and think about why that's something that it wants and why that's a difficult thing to obtain.
Or maybe there's something unique about your eyes and it just won't leave you alone now. Like, it just keeps following you. And maybe it's nice, so you're trying not to, like, you don't hurt the thing, but it just, you try to go to sleep, you wake up, there he is, just staring at your eyes. Like, wow, there they are again. Weird.
It doesn't just want to know what the color of your eyes are. It wants to suck the color of your eyes out of your eye, and your eyes will not have color after that.
Kind of like our eyes. We got brown eyes.
Like it doesn't want you to tell you it doesn't want to be told the story of your first kiss. It wants to steal that memory from you, and you no longer have it. Like,
yeah, there's some nasty fae out there too, so they'll.
Yeah, these are all like fae things. Like that's I love it. That whole section, we could spend so much time just going over it. A lot of these sections we have spent a lot of time, but we could spend even more time going over them.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we have supernatural regions, which gives you all sorts of different types of areas that your players might step into, and then it gives you like a table of effects that region might have. It gives you all sorts of like little things that might happen in that region. Like it's just, there's a lot there, and that goes from everything to like a far realm, from a haunted house or a mirror zone.
There's so many things to just spark imagination, and then there are mechanics and or tables to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that really, and the fact that it calls it Dungeon Master's Tools too, like I like that phrasing, because it just feels really good. I like so much of what they did. Magical phenomena section, that's really.
Yeah, was there anything?
I thought the Eldritch Storms were cool, emotional echoes, and then they had magic mushrooms, which made me think of your mushroom in the hag hut, and I was like, yeah, Josh is on the right track there. This is great.
I did it.
You did. You were Tasha before Tasha was Tasha. That's my story. Oh, and then mimic colonies. Why not? Let's have a colony full of mimic things. Like,
colonies are just amazing.
The picture there just shows like two ladies sitting at a table, maybe drinking tea, and like the tea has like a little tongue sticking out. The teapot looks alive, hanging plants. Like, I love that.
That's great. Next, there's natural hazards, which, oh my god, guys, DMs, make natural hazards a part of your campaigns.
Yes,
you need to, like there are big things that you could do. You could make little things into big things because of natural hazards. So they give an example. They give plenty of examples and then mechanics for it, for avalanches, falling into water, falling on a creature. They also have the spell equivalents of natural hazards. Mm-hmm. So if there's a blizzard, they have an approximate spell next to it, basically, so you could figure out like the damage type and that kind of thing. So Cone of Cold, Ice Storm, Sleet Storm.
Yeah. Include more weather in your games. I feel like that's something that I often forget. And even the DMG has some weather tables, but it's just another way of setting the scene. I want to do that more when I DM.
Because think about weather in your actual life. Think about how, even when you're driving, how different is your commute to and from work on a sunny day than it is on a rainy day, than it is on a snowy day, or even a windy day. Like, all of those things, even when you're just driving a car, have a huge impact on your life. So think about your PCs that are
visibility, all sorts of things.
Yeah, your PCs who are traveling through like the woods or whatever. All right, well, it snowed and there's a foot of snow and then ice underneath that. So like,
now there's difficult terrain all over the place.
Small hill that they're walking up, but there's ice on it. That's a very difficult thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody went to Suffolk Community College?
Oh my gosh.
You probably slipped and fell on ice at least once.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You're a little late for your class. You're like, nah, I gotta get up there.
The next section is something I was very, very excited for. Puzzles. And I haven't gotten too in-depth into puzzles. I mainly just scrolled through to see how many there were. And there are many. And I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I think I may have referenced it in an earlier video. I can't remember at the moment. I think I was hoping for like a make your own puzzle table, if you will. I don't necessarily know exactly how you actually could make that a thing.
Well,
rather than as set puzzles. And this has set puzzles, and I think they vary in difficulty from easy, medium, and difficult, or hard, or whatever. And yeah, so, but it seems like I don't know, I haven't looked at these, so I don't really know if they're flexible, because as soon as I saw that they were set puzzles, I was like, well, we're playing a game right now. I don't want to look at them and spoil options Josh could throw at us. So there's just, it's one of those things like, ugh. But it has a hint check mechanic and tips for running a puzzle, which I thought was really cool. So it seems like they did this well. It just seems like it would stink to. I think it would not be fun to have maybe did one of them and then you go into another game with someone else and then you're like, okay, I'm gonna just pretend I don't know. Yeah. Sometimes that's the thing though for D&D with players that have some experience.
And there is some versatility to them. Some of them have have riddle tables on them. So like a riddle might be a section for the puzzle, but there's a lot of different options for the riddles. So that adds to some replayability. But yeah, puzzles are definitely one of those things, or puzzles and traps. Like, all right, you've experienced this before, you probably know the right way out of it, but that's just kind of one of the problems. I don't know if it's necessarily a problem, but it's one of the things with D&D. Like if you've fought a troll before, you know, kill it with fire and acid.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, it's exciting to have them though. They've never had anything like this that I can remember in a D&D source book through any of the editions I can think of. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comment section.
There's so many third-party puzzle books. That's everything I've ever looked at was third-party. There's a lot to love about Tasha's Cauldron of everything. A lot of really good information in here. A lot of different types of information in here. In years past, they probably would have made this multiple books.
That's a good point.
Because there's a lot in here, and I'm all about this. I'm happy to see this. I mean, even natural hazards. Like, I was talking to Jake months back, talking about how I would love. I forget what I referred to it as, but like I would love basically like a winter book, like running cold, snowy adventures and like that kind of thing, and you know, environmental hazards for the cold and cold enemies and that kind of stuff. And
yeah, the natural hazards is exciting. It's one of those things that's mundane, but how many settings really feel gritty because they're set in this biting cold of winter? I mean, just think, I mean, winter is coming, right? Game of Thrones, the wall. I mean, everything about that and how cold it was added so much depth to that story. And if this is going to equip you to be able to tell those stories in more fun and meaningful ways and help your players have to make difficult decisions about their resources and how they set their priorities with those resources, that's this is good. I'm excited for this. I can't wait to dive into really everything, but from what I've seen so far, I'm stoked.
I totally agree. Only thing I would have left to say is make sure you go down to the doobly-doo, check out that Gleam giveaway, and enter as many ways as you possibly can. Tell your friends, like, comment, subscribe. If there's anything you're excited about in this book, tell us in the comments. Anything that we didn't go over that you wish we did, anything that we did go over that you weren't excited about, and now you're like, holy cow, kind of like the group patrons, like, let us know.
Things like Baby Yaga's Mortar and Pestle as an artifact, a legendary artifact magic item. And from the lore perspective, Tasha is a wizard who has kind of like a witchy flavor here, and Baby Yaga is the one that taught her.
It's Baba Yaga.
Baby Yaga, all right? Like Lady Gaga. Oh gosh. So Baba Yaga. I was like looking over you, you're smirking at me. I'm like, I don't know what's going on.
I'm sorry.
You're like, stop talking, Jake.
I wanted to put like a Baby Yoda on the screen, but then I remembered I'm not the person who edits these videos.
There it is.